What's up and welcome to the Sam Dracula channel, a Charlotte Hornets fan channel. My name is Sam and the Charlotte Hornets have made some news on Super Bowl Monday, which is weird. The NBA has to really stop doing stuff around the Super Bowl. Like they got to move the trade deadline, for instance. Like it's crazy. Like the NBA doesn't get the love it deserves during this stretch. And the day after the Super Bowl, nuts. It's like the equivalent of dropping news on a Friday afternoon when you kind of wanted to have it buried. But this is good news though for the Charlotte Hornets. According to Woj, Mitch Kupchak is stepping down to become an organizational advisor, clearing the way for the franchise to begin an immediate search for a new head of basketball operations. Woj continues, among several league executives expected to be considered in the process, Langdon from New Orleans, Peterson from Brooklyn, Ganzi from Cleveland, Elton Brand from Philly, and others. This feels like this was going to happen sooner or later. There was a mention from Rod Boone in the Observer article saying that this was the understanding anyway going into the year. And this is from the ESPN article that Woj wrote. There's an expectation that the new owners will hire a new top basketball executive prior to the end of the regular season. So we shouldn't have to wait terribly long. This is massive for a lot of reasons, right? New ownership, it seemed like a matter of time before personnel in the front office changed, right? You buy a team, why would you keep everybody involved, especially when things aren't going well, right? Like they have been in Charlotte. You know, when MJ sold his majority stake in the team right around draft time, I think it was the week of the draft, it seemed impossible to bring in a new front office during, not even during a draft cycle, but during the draft, right? Anyone in a job is busy. And I'm assuming the Hornets are going to take a risk on a first timer to be the GM, right? So the timing of it was horrible for Mitch Kupchak to be replaced then. The owners prioritizing getting the deal done before the season ends is a beautiful thing. It means we can hit the ground running. Hopefully, please get involved with some tampering. Everybody in the league tampers. I want my Hornets to get involved in some tampering, all right? I'm a Hornets fan. I'll give up a second-round pick if it means landing a solid free agent in free agency. Please, let's tamper just a little bit. Not that crazy. Just a little tampering would go a long way. This is from Hornets.com. From the owners quoting saying, as Mitch nears the end of his contract, we agreed that now was the right time to begin the search in order to put the organization in the best position for the upcoming offseason. I love it. These new guys, killing it. It took a while, but A+ so far. I'm here for it. I like these new guys a lot. So this video is about Mitch Kupchak, but you can't talk about the guy at the top without talking about the guy on the floor, and that guy being Steve Clifford, right? Whomever gets hired as the new head of basketball operations, I'm assuming, will want their head coach in place. Steve Clifford is has a team option for next year. It feels like this is where it's heading, where that option will be declined and Clifford will have a new role within the organization like Mitch. Steve Clifford has a ton of experience. He's super well respected and liked around the league. He knows basketball, and you know, a new GM is going to want to inherit a coach, right? So I think Clifford can go back to being a consultant like he was for the Nets before he rejoined the Hornets 2 years ago. Now, going back to the main man, Mitch Kupchak, right? This man joined us in 2018, right? Before that, he pretty much had a Hall of Fame type career with the Los Angeles Lakers, right? I'll forever respect Mitch Kupchak for not trading Kobe when Kobe publicly demanded a trade, right? And then later on, pulling off one of the greatest trades in NBA history up until that point, acquiring Paul Gasol. Now that his tenure is done as GM, as head of basketball operations for the Hornets, you can look back at his tenure here with some highlights, like a lot of good highlights, and some lowlights. We're gonna go through all of them as fast as possible, all right? We're gonna speed run this. 2018 fired Steve Clifford, a rip. Hired James Borrego. That was a W until it wasn't, right? Drafted SGA and traded him for Miles Bridges. That's a rip. I really wish we had SGA right now. You know what I mean? They also left the draft with Devontae Graham out of the second round. Incredible selection. A month later, traded Dwight for some stuff. You know, nothing like back-breaking or franchise-breaking in July 2018, right? They signed Tony Parker, right? They got some draft picks that later turned into Cody Martin, which we'll talk about later. That team won 39 games. I would kill for that right now. You know what I mean? That's that first team. Mitch's first year here was a 39-win team. Moving on to the summer of 2019, when I started this channel, okay, Kemba left. which we'll talk about in a second, but they selected PJ Washington with the 12th pick in the draft, in the 2019 draft. But we could have also had Tyler Hero, who went right after PJ. He went 13th. Hero went 13th, and PJ went 12th. Hero here with SGA. Now, it wouldn't really work that way. You don't know how the records will shake out, but the idea of having SGA and Tyler Hero, not terrible, you know what I mean? The what ifs aside, leaving the draft with 1 first-round pick and 2 second-round picks, and all 3 are NBA players, that's incredible. That's an incredible amount of draft selection and player development, right? This is where we really saw how the Greensboro effect, the Greensboro G League experience can go when you look at Cody and Jalen's development specifically. It's not on the screen right now, but you can put Caleb Martin into this mix too when you talk about the G League development from like during the Mitch Kupchak era. All right, now let's talk about Kemba, right? Sign and trade with Kemba Walker, arguably the franchise's greatest player, right? In a sign and trade, getting Terry Rozier back in the deal. Kemba, his career went downhill quickly. Like Charlotte definitely made the right deal here. Saying goodbye to Kemba, giving Kemba a chance to compete on a good team, right? Charlotte was tanking pretty much, and Rozier was meant to lead the charge for the rebuild. The Hornets went super young going into the year, won 23 games. This was the COVID shortened year. So who knows? Maybe they would have gone on a run and been 500. You never know. Or just under 500. You never know. This draft right here, the 2020 just draft and offseason in general, is so cursed for pretty much every team that just had limited access to guys because you just couldn't work them out or couldn't visit with them like you would if it wasn't a pandemic, if there wasn't a pandemic going on, right? But Charlotte lucked out, right? we didn't miss with the 3rd pick when a lot of teams did miss with their lottery picks. LaMelo Ball selected 3rd overall, right? Vernon Carey in the 2nd round, rip. Grant Riller drafted the 2nd round, rip. But Nick Richards traded for in the 2nd round from the Pelicans. So that's a W. They left the draft with LaMelo, Riller, Vernon Carey, and Nick Richards. Richards and LaMelo, dubs, Carey, Riller, rips. Also, shout out Nate Darling. Gordon Hayward signed 4 years, $120 million. Not great. Didn't work out. That was an L. That's a no. March 25th. This is the deadline deal just because it was a weird year because, again, the start of the year. So the trade deadline went into March. But, yeah, Brad Wanamaker, my guy. Right, Hornets had an injury crisis in the backcourt. Shocker, right? It's not new. If you're a new Hornets fan, the injuries in the backcourt are not a new thing, and they ended up having to trade for Brad Wanamaker as an emergency backup. So that being said, let's move on. That season ended 33-39, 10th in the Eastern Conference. The 21 draft comes. We leave the draft with James Bouknight, Kai Jones, Scotty Lewis, and JT Thor. Shout out to JT Thor for holding it down for the draft class, you know what I mean? Bouknight gone. Kai Jones gone. Scotty Lewis broke his leg right before his summer league 2 seasons ago. We haven't seen him since. It's a problem. It's a problem. Let's forget this draft could ever happen. You know, in hindsight, the move would have been to have selected Şengün. This was the offseason that the Hornets lost Malik Monk and Devontae Graham, right? You had LaMelo, you have Terry Rozier. No need for those guys to stick around, right? So Devontae was signed and traded away for a protected 1st-round pick, which would later become a lottery pick, thanks to the Pelicans making the playoffs. Shout out to them. More on that pick later, right? But that's the big takeaway from this whole thing. You know, getting that pick back, getting involved in a 3-team deal, right? Ish Smith signed, Kelly Oubre signed in that offseason as well. D'Angelo rip, right? Let's move on, though. Let's move on to the deadline where the Hornets were looking like this is a year, man. This was a real year for the Hornets, right? Things were trending positively for the first time in a long time. Best year by far under the Kupchak era. They had to make a move to fortify things, right? So they moved Vernon Carey, they moved Ish Smith, and acquired Montrezl Harrell. I didn't mention it earlier, but Plumlee was involved in the JT Thor trade. So we had Plumlee and Harrell in the front court during this run at times. It was very interesting and actually refreshing to see 2 qualified real NBA players occupy the front court for the Hornets. It was a tough time. It was a tough run up to the stage. It was also the year where flirting with Isaiah Thomas, just keep signing him on 10-day contracts. But he finally got a deal. And I liked Isaiah for the year. We ended the year 43-39, 10th in the Eastern Conference in the play-in game. I didn't mention this before because it's pain and suffering, but this was the 2nd time in a row, back-to-back play-in disasters, right? This past season and then this season. I don't think this is on this page, but that was the last year of Borrego. Steve Clifford returns in 2022. Fired in 2018, returns in 2022, right? Going into the draft, the Hornets had 2 first-round picks, 13th and 15th. 13th pick was ours. 15th pick came from New Orleans in the sign and trade for Devontae Graham. And again, going back to Mitch Kupchak, it's important to acknowledge because these deals from previous years can play out in the future. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. Getting what they got for Devontae at the time sucked. Getting it back a year later, getting a first-round pick back a year later was great. Problem is, we end up with Dern and Mark Williams and traded Dern. Now, Dern's awesome. Mark Williams hasn't played in a long-ass time. I have concerns. We'll see how this plays out. I like Mark Williams' upside, but I have real concerns about his back. So hopefully it works out. Hopefully it works out. Mark Williams has all the talent in the world to be a really good NBA player. I just have concerns. Mitch flips Dern for a pick that became Nick Smith and Amari Bailey and some other pieces, right? We'll see what happens with those young guys and future picks as it plays out, right? We also left the draft with Bryce McGowan's. Take it, right? We re-signed Cody to an extension. And just had a look. I don't think it's on here, but they also extended Nick Richards last year as well. So let's fast forward to later that season, right? We're up against the trade deadline. Mason Plumlee's moved to the Clippers. You know, we get Reggie Jackson back, who's immediately bought out, right? We get some second round picks as part of the thing. You know, we moved Jalen McDaniels, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent, I believe, that summer anyway. You know, it just made no sense to keep him if he wasn't going to stick around when he had all the options to. And at that time, I thought Jalen could have been something really special in the NBA. Still probably can. It's not over for him, but I think moving on from him was a good idea. It was a good idea. And trading Mason allowed, you know, cleared the way for Mark Williams to start and play more instead of, you know, going back and forth between here and Greensboro. But yeah, they acquired Mekhi Luke. This whole situation sucked. This season sucked. Hornets finished the season 27-55, 14th in the NBA. End up with the second pick in the draft thanks to the lottery balls, and we select Brandon Miller, my guy. Also leave the draft with Nick Smith Jr. in the first round, Amari Bailey, and an individual named James Najee who doesn't play for Barcelona. All right, that's being stashed over there. So we'll see how that works out. I didn't like the look of him in Summer League, but we'll see how that plays out. But Brandon Miller, excellent draft pick. Nick Smith Jr., still early, but shows some real positive signs from a scoring point of view, especially. Amari Bailey, haven't seen much of him. And then, like I mentioned, Najee doesn't even play for the team that we drafted him from in Barcelona. So not included in here really is the Miles Bridges back and forth. We're going into this next season. It's going to be the third offseason row where Miles Bridges is going to be the main focus. And it sucks. So the less said about that, the better. Going into this year, which would become Mitch's last season, Maladon brought back, right? Frankie Smokes signed, right? Ed Sumner signed, right? Ish Smith signed. This whole bench situation going into the season we're currently in was so terrible. So terrible. But when you have things like this, what they've done from January 23rd to now has been exceptionally competent. Genuinely, these new owners are cooking. I didn't even mention this. During this cycle, I don't have the exact date. Hold on, I'm going too far back. Where's it at? Yeah. Where's it at? During this stage, MJ sold his majority stake in the team. So again, that's not a Kupchak thing. It's a Hornets thing, but that happened around here too. So from this point, I don't say from this point on, where the new owners, when 2024 ticked over, things have been going very well for the Hornets. Like up top, not going well on the court per se, but just everything else though, I think thumbs up. I made 3 videos on deadline day. It's on the channel. Go check them out if you haven't already. So I'm not going to go into depth on these deals, but I will say I went to the Grizzlies game on Saturday night, and that's where I got this from. And boy, that was fun. I know it was just the Grizzlies, but man, this team feels alive. It feels like competent. It feels real. Like this feels like an actual professional team now. And it hasn't at all this year. Like last night's win was amazing. The energy in the building was awesome. And it feels great. It feels great. And I hope it continues the rest of the year. Not that, you know, we're not going to make the playoffs or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. But things have gotten better. Objectively have improved. Moving PJ and Gordon Hayward. W trades. The Rozier, Washington, and Hayward deals. What a way to go out. These are his people. He brought these guys in, and he got more value for them in return on their exits, on his exit. W Mitch. So we'll see what happens next. I've been talking about this on stream here and on Bleacher Report. Follow me on Twitter, by the way. I do live streams for Bleacher Report. I'll tweet out the link when I do them. So link in the description, @SamDracula. I've been mentioning it here, there, and everywhere that the Hornets should be tanking, not for a player, but for a GM and coach, right? This situation today is better than it was on January 22nd, by far. The cap situation's healthier and the draft capital situation is healthier, right? Mitch Kupchak is set up the GM job, the head of basketball operations job, to be a better job, a more attractive job and opportunity for the new guy than it would have been, which means I think you got a better selection of candidates. Because if you're a GM and you're coming into this situation from before the Rozier deal, right? It's like, oh my God, I gotta deal with this guy. I gotta deal with this guy. I gotta deal with this guy. I gotta deal. Most of the work is done. The work isn't finished entirety. Look out, Hornets got a long way to go. I don't, you know what I mean? It's not a ready-made job. But this job today is much better than it was January 22nd before the Rozier deal happened. Yeah. And I don't think that's an accident. I think Mitch has really set up the next person for success, and again, made the job more attractive for top tier personnel talent. And whoever comes in next, hopefully will have the keys and the resources to build their vision of what this franchise should be on court. And we'll see how that impacts the coaching staff later on. I'm gonna leave you on two things. First thing, I need you to like and subscribe. I appreciate it. We just got over 6,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Second thing, and more importantly, these new owners are cooking. I've been Sam. You've been great. Peace.